You know how to book flights and hotels. All you're missing is a tool to plan the travel experiences you'll have once you arrive. That's why you need Viator. Book guided tours, excursions, and more in one place. There are over 300,000 travel experiences to choose from, so you can find something for everyone. And Viator offers free cancellation and 24/7 customer support for worry-free travel. Download the Viator app now and use code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. Find travel experiences for you. Do more with Viator.
Welcome to the Roaring Repeater. I am Cody Tucker, joined by Jared Newland. We thought we would do a little quickie for basketball. I know right now, Jared, everybody's finally, it's kind of coming in waves. Like 1 second everybody's excited about basketball, the next second everybody's excited about football. Right now we're going to give that to football, but we need to give basketball a little love. They're 2-1 right now, and I got to admit, coming off that loss to Southeast Louisiana on Sunday, a 76-72 setback inside the arena auditorium. I can't lie, Jared, that took something out of me a little bit.
It did, and being there live in person, it was just one of those things that was Cowboys were flat until like 3 minutes to go in the game. They didn't start pressing until about 3 minutes to go in the game. They missed way too many shots, and the majority of those were three-pointers. They're jacking up those at a record pace right now, and they're just not falling. And then there was several 2 to 3 foot jumpers in the lane that Hunter Maldonado missed that he normally knocks those down, and they just weren't falling for him. So it was a weird game from the get-go, and you could kind of sense the whole game like this is going to be a battle from here on out, because Southeast Louisiana, you got to give them credit. Mm-hmm. They were at CSU on Friday night at elevation, come to Laramie, higher elevation, and gave the Cowboys everything they wanted and more on their home court.
Yeah, and Southeast Louisiana lost at CSU by 11, but that score was not indicative of how close that game was.
It was like a 2 to 4 point game with like about a minute to go.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not giving the Cowboys any excuses. And just to let you know, I actually did not make it over on Sunday. I had prior obligations, so I couldn't be there, but heard nothing but bad. Heard it was the atmosphere was not good. Not many people in the crowd. I can see by looking at numbers, 13 of 42 from behind the arc. The Cowboys are number one in the country, three-point attempts per game at 37. They've played 3 games. Jared, guess how many three-pointers they've made in 3 games?
I'm cheating, but 37.
Isn't that sick?
It is.
37 of 112. I know Graham Ike's not in this lineup, but they have tall, lanky. They have size. Odin Ogbongpolo, Powell's not playing hardly any minutes at all. Why can't he be an inside presence right now, especially early in non-conference season?
The rotations, obviously Coach Linder and the staff have their hands full on trying to figure out what rotations are going to work early on with all these non-conference games. Obviously, the other day they didn't work very well, but a lot of that is cold shooting. But, you wonder why, if they are 12, 13 deep on this team and he wants to run, why aren't they pressing from the get-go? Especially a team like this that's been on the road for their second game.
Great point. Yeah.
Southeast Louisiana. They don't start pressing until about 3 minutes to go, and it worked. They caused several turnovers.
Right.
And then they made them go to the lines when they didn't, and they would miss front ends every once in a while, which was great because they were under the 10 foul limit at the time. So it's strange, but I mean, you and I aren't coaches, and the 4,000 fans that show up to the games right now aren't coaches by any means. So we got to let them do their job, and they'll figure this out. I mean, it's a long season, and I want to harp on this a little bit because there are upsets happening all over the country. This doesn't define who the Cowboys are, and this isn't going to determine if they get in the tournament or not. It is not a large bit if that's what it comes down to.
This is going to most likely be a game we're going to look back and go, remember when Wyoming got their eyes opened?
Exactly. Yep.
Because, you need to talk me off the ledge a little bit here because I was stunned to see this happen. And then immediately when I saw the score, I dug into the stats and I went, what in the world? So I know we're not coaches, but if you're missing shots like this, don't you say, Noah Reynolds, go to the rack? And I know you said Maldo missed a few inside, but keep going there. That's high percentage.
Exactly. And they were the backing in type ones too, to where he would turn around with the one hand, I don't want to say hook shot, but kind of a hook shot and a floater mix. And they just went off the back of their rim so many times.
Wow.
And,
not getting rebounds.
Exactly. But they out-rebounded the team close to 10. And they had 18 offensive rebounds in that game. And they just didn't get the second chance points that they normally would. So, but the selection committee in the long run is going to look back and say, you know what, the preseason player of the year in the Mountain West did not play in certain games. And so say, they start the Virgin Islands Classic on Friday and they play Howard. And if they can get by that team, then we'll see who they play and so forth. But say they go 2-1 in this tournament, or maybe they say, maybe you go 1-2.
Right.
The selection committee is still going to look at these games and say, hey, the preseason player of the year did not play.
Yeah.
Yes, they are loaded with talent, but their game is inside or outside to Graham, kicks it back out, or he takes it to the rack.
Yeah, this offense goes through him.
That's how they won all the games last year. Went to the NCAA tournament.
Right.
So and there are a lot of upsets already happening. Grambling goes to CU, beats the Buffs. South Dakota State goes to Boise State, beats the Broncos. Then you turn around and CU goes to 11th ranked Tennessee, beats them. Northwestern State, who plays in the same league as Nicholls State and Southeast Louisiana, wins at 15th ranked TCU.
Yeah.
There are upsets happening all over the country in college basketball, and a lot of that has to do with the transfer portal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, heck, I know it wasn't a win, but Gardner-Webb darn near won in Fort Collins last week.
Yep. And Gardner-Webb did beat somebody earlier this year already.
How were you... I want to know what you were thinking coming away from the first two games. The first one, obviously, a win over Colorado Christian, a Division II school. That was a 102-69 game. Nicholls, 75-68. What did you walk out of those games feeling like?
The first two, wow, this Cowboy team's deep. And I don't want to be on that bench trying to figure out that rotation.
Right.
Because it's going to be different based on matchups and who's hot and who's not.
That's why people, like, for instance, are freaking out about Xavier Ducell, a guy who's played so much over the last 2 years. Coach Linder didn't bat an eye when somebody said, "You worried about Ducell?" He was like, the matchup didn't fit him, and that's the luxury of what we can do. But now in the age of transfer portal, people are going, "Oh, my God, it's a matter of time."
Ducell needs to grow his hair back out.
Yeah,
it's too short right
for
now.
starters.
Maybe his balance is off. No, but it's going to be all based on matchups and what the other team has and what they don't have. And, and Ducell is a blue-collar type of a worker on the court. What's best for the team is best for him.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I gather from Xavier Ducell.
Smart kid.
And, yeah, you might see him hang his head a little bit and everything. I don't know if that's out of frustration of not getting playing time. I think it's frustration that he did something wrong.
Right. And something I noticed he did, he did get some time against Colorado Christian, but 3 quick fouls. And we saw that last year. I mean, he's so aggressive on the defensive end that he's picking up a lot of cheap fouls, and that's going to get you on the bench too. And I'm sure that the coaches are all saying you can't be using just your arms and your hands. You have to move your feet. Yeah.
And, we talked a little bit about on the kickoff show, a little basketball stuff about the new rules. That new flopping rule, I'm seeing both ways right now. I mean, I'm watching some games on TV. In fact, I watched Gonzaga, Texas last night. They called a kid for flopping, and it was so blatantly a charge. I mean, the guy lowered his shoulder, drilled him, knocked him over, and they called it a flop. And even Chris Beard was like, for Texas, like, how did you just call that? I mean,
it's preseason for the refs too, right, Jared?
And we all have seen that too. That the crew for Colorado Christian was a veteran crew. The crews for the next 2 games, I've never even seen these people before, and one of them looked like he should have a walker. That's how old this guy was.
Was Southeast Louisiana as muddy as the Nicholls game was, where it was just there was zero flow to that game?
At times there was, but you got to give Southeast Louisiana a lot of credit. They are very athletic. They came in confident in what they were going to be able to do. And I don't know their names, but they had 2 brothers on the team that were very good, and they had swagger.
Yeah.
And then number 3, I don't know that kid's name, but he can shoot. And they were just athletic as all get out.
Well, before we came on the air, we were bitching about the attendance and how everybody was supposedly so excited about this team, and we can get into that a little deeper. But something that kills my love, like last night you said, I just watched Gonzaga in Texas. You couldn't have paid me to watch Gonzaga in Texas, and I'll tell you why. Because of what we're talking about. I cannot stand a lot of aspects of the game of basketball because of that. It kills the flow. And it's every single time down the floor. And it's painful to watch. And I always talk about this one game, CSU Wyoming. I live in Michigan. I'm sitting at home doing absolutely nothing on a Saturday once. CSU Wyoming's on national television. And I'm like, oh, sweet, this doesn't happen. Cracked a beer, turned it off right about 5 minutes into the second half. Because they were trending toward the most fouls in the history of a Mountain West basketball game. I can't stand it.
Yeah, there are times when you see refs take control right away and say this is going to be one of those nights where we're going to call 40 fouls. But then there's other times where, hey, I like the flow of this. And I've said it many a times, and I'm going to keep saying it. When you see some of these Mountain West refs, and they're not just Mountain West refs, they're a West coalition, so you see them in the Big 12, you see them in the Pac-12. They call games differently when they're on national TV in a Big 12 game or a Pac-12 game or even a big-time Mountain West game. You see them call games differently.
Why?
I have no idea, but you do. You see the Dave Halls, the Vern Harrises, the Randy McCalls, and the way they run up and down the court when it's a big-time game. They're showboating. And we all know Dave Hall loves to go to the review. Monitor.
Yeah.
He does it at least one time a game, and if it's on national TV, he might do it 2 or 3 times a game. And of course, it's probably, if you look at all the things, it's probably all evens out, but it just appears that way.
Well, there's something to it because the times when I do sit down and become a basketball junkie, like a lot of people in America, is during the tournament. And it seems like those are where they kind of get out of the way. And, I covered a huge program in Michigan State for 2 seasons. And it wasn't nearly like this. It wasn't like this at all, in fact. I mean, this stuff can get downright painful.
Well, in one instance the other day against Southeast Louisiana, Wyoming had just scored. Louisiana is taking the ball out. Noah Reynolds runs up. He was like a half court, and he runs up to position himself different. They inbound the ball. Southeast Louisiana players running by him. Flicks his hand into the nether region of Noah Reynolds and drops him. They don't do anything. Noah Reynolds is laying on the ground. They finish the play down there. On the other end of the court, Wyoming commits a foul. And then, so Wyoming's coaches are saying, look at what just happened over there. And they were like, well, what happened? Well, first of all, open your eyes.
Yeah, you're right.
Stop play. So they let the play go at the other end. Southeast, after it was all figured out, the kid gets kicked out of the game. So I don't know, it's not a punch, but he flicked him in the nether region.
Yeah.
And so he leaves the game. They let Southeast Louisiana shoot a free throw to complete that play. And then Noah Reynolds comes down and, shoots the technical, and then Wyoming gets the ball. But there was like 20 seconds that had disappeared off the clock too, and it was crunch time. So I don't understand how they couldn't say, all right, we're waiving that playoff, should have been stopped here.
Add some time.
Add the time back on the clock. He shoots the free throws, and then Wyoming gets the ball again. I just don't understand that.
Right.
That concept. And maybe you can't stop the play, which I suppose that's probably the reason why.
Did Jeff Linder's head explode?
I didn't see him going totally bananas, to be honest with you. But it was one of those things that was, and you probably see it out of Jeff enough. He was probably like, get up. He probably didn't really know what happened.
He did get a technical yelling at his own player.
Yeah.
In the NCAA tournament.
So, and if I was Jeff during that game, I would have gotten a technical for sure, just to fire your team up.
Right.
So,
do you think right now, Jared, there's just too many moving parts and he needs to figure out 7, 8 dudes? And I asked him this before the season started. How excited are you to play with all these different lineups? And he said, I want to set 6 or 7. And he almost has to, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there's foul trouble, obviously you have somebody to go to. But every day in practice, you got to earn your way into that 6, 7, 8-man rotation. The other ones are going to be sitting on the bench.
Who's your starting five right now in the Virgin Islands when they're playing Howard starting Friday?
Let me pull up their roster so I can remember who's all on the team. Well, obviously, Hunter, Maldonado, Ethan Anderson.
So Ethan's running your point.
Yes. I hate saying this, but I like the three guard rotation with Noah Reynolds in there too, because Noah's, like you said, he can get to the rack.
So I think that's where you can go small, or else you bring in the Ogbong Polo Odin.
And you have to have those two in there because of their athleticism.
Yeah.
But
and these guys are 6'9".
And Hunter Thompson's jumping center right now, which is just odd to me.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to Hunter, but have you ever seen him dunk a ball? Maybe one in his career?
He's got a pretty shot. He don't need to be
I know,
dunking.
but there are times, and give Hunter a lot of credit. He is going to the boards more than he has ever gone to his boards in his previous 5 years in
and
Wyoming.
Linder loves him going to the boards on the offensive side.
Yes,
more so.
And he is doing it, but there are times when he doesn't know or can't feel the sense that there's nobody behind him. He needs to turn around and put the ball back up, and he dishes it outside again. Go up and dunk the ball with some authority.
When I see this many three-point attempts, I think low percentage. And, I know this team can get hot, and they can turn that number around pretty quickly, but that's an in-game adjustment, right? I mean, when they're just not falling, you just go to the rack. I mean, we used to see it with Steve McLean's teams all the time. If they're not hitting, if Dante Richardson wasn't hitting and Bailey wasn't hitting a couple, Jay Straight's going to the rack. Chris McMillan's going to the rack. Guys like that. Brandon Ewing eventually going to the rack. That's just Brad Jones was probably the best at it.
Shooting three-pointers is kind of a comparison to being a 300 baseball hitter.
Yeah.
You're a Hall of Famer if you're a 300 hitter.
Absolutely.
And in basketball, if you're hitting 30% of your three-pointers, that's pretty dang good.
Mm-hmm.
But Wyoming needs to step it up because they're not hitting 33%.
Yeah, and the other thing that is not Jeff Linder team-like is their three-point defense. They're 255th in the country right now. Opponents have hit 26 of 73 from beyond the arc, 35.6%. That hurts.
It does.
When you're not hitting your threes and they're hitting theirs.
And when you look at those three games, I mean, and it's going to happen all the time that guys make contested shots. I mean, kudos to them for doing so. It seems like Wyoming's opponents right now are making more contested shots because a lot of times the guys are on them.
Well, and maybe these guys with this rotation just aren't on the court long enough to get any kind of rhythm going. And then you add in some whistles to boot, and you're just that's a recipe for disaster.
That's hitting the nail on the head right there.
So the Cowboys are down in the U.S. Virgin Islands, wherever that is. I assume it's somewhere south of Florida. They're taking on Howard in the first contest down there. That contest is set for 1:15 p.m. Mountain Time on Friday. And ESPN3 will be showing the entirety of the tournament. You talked to Reese Monaco and
I talked to Kevin McKinney, actually.
Kevin McKinney.
So, obviously, they have a football game to call on Friday, and football is always first priority for the first broadcast team. And Keith, who does the Cowgirl games, Cowgirls have a game on Friday night, so he can't sub in. So I called Kevin. I was like, what are you guys doing? Because I used to be in that position to try to figure out what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin goes, well, we're doing it remotely. And I was like, really? I said, how? And then he explained it. So the control center that all the poke vision's done out of in the arena, it's nice, by the way. It's a broadcast truck in a permanent location. It's very nice. There's screens everywhere, monitors. Dennis does a really good job there. And so they're going to watch the game via the ESPN3 feed of at least two cameras, possibly a third we might hear, but they're going to call the game from that. And it's going to be just fine because ESPNU has been calling football and basketball games via virtual for many years, even before COVID.
Well, you remember the Texas State-Wyoming game down in San Marcos, the football game? That one was one of the infamous ones because I heard it wasn't very ideal. And you had to pay for it on ESPN+.
Yeah. But you see it all the time now, and
with COVID.
Yeah, but it was even pre-COVID that they started. It's cost-cutting measures, and if it works, it works. Who cares?
And by the way, you don't have to pay for ESPN3. You just have to go to their app, correct? And you can stream it.
Yep, just stream it on their app, and it should, when you pull up the ESPN scoreboard and go to the Mountain West basketball, it should say watch, and you can watch it on one and pull up the KOWB or K2 app, and listen to the Cowboy broadcast and simulcast it that way, and it should be lined up, I would think.
You would think.
I hope it's not a big delay, but sometimes with satellite feeds and all that kind of stuff, it might be. Who knows? But give it a try.
Well, the Cowboys are forcing nearly 18 turnovers a game. That's 62nd in the nation. You would think they'd be making hay off of all of those freebies, but they are not. Looking forward to seeing if this is a big chance to hit the reset button.
Yeah, I think, Virgin Islands Classic, come out of there. Obviously, 3-0 would be the best scenario. A 2-1 would be a really good tournament for the Cowboys, in my opinion. Just don't be worse than that. Take care of business. Go 1-0, as Craig Bull says, one game at a time, and go from there.
Yeah, and they better figure it out, because when they get home, they have to go play Santa Clara on the 30th in Salt Lake City.
Very good team.
Very good team. Then come home for probably their marquee non-conference home game of the year against Grand Canyon, and that will take place on December 3rd. Then it's Texas A&M Commerce. Louisiana Tech is pretty salty team. And then it's Dayton, of course, who lost at UNLV, last night? 2 nights ago?
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. The Running Rebels with one of their biggest wins. And then it's St. Mary's in Phoenix. But that game against Dayton, of course, is in Chicago's United Center, and then St. Mary's in Phoenix. Then it's conference time. So hopefully we see Graham Ike would be really nice before that Dayton game.
It would be. And
that's the 17th of December, by the way.
Which would be right around that 6 to 8 week mark.
Yeah.
I just want to give a shout out to some other sports that are going on real quick. Cowgirls off to a rough start, 0-2 so far. Had a great game with Gonzaga the other night. Gave them everything they wanted. Gonzaga's gone to 5 straight NCAA tournaments.
Just went cold at the end.
Up 6 with about 2 minutes to go. Gonzaga scores 8 straight and wins the game.
Yep.
And then Cowboy Wrestling is off and running already.
Yep.
They hosted the Cowboy Open last week, had 5 individual champions and 16 total place winners, because there's a lot of A, B, and C guys going right now. They are without Stephen Buchanan, Wyoming's stud.
Yeah.
Number 2 ranked at 197 right now, and it doesn't look like he's going to be in the lineup on Friday night at 7th ranked Oklahoma State either.
What a duel that'll be. What a way to open the duel season inside Gallagher-Iba Arena in Stillwater.
That is one series that has been there since Mark Branch has come from Oklahoma State. He's had that duel set. Usually they go down there and do Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, and sometimes in the same day. They'll do that. But Wyoming was putting the whooping on Oklahoma enough where Oklahoma won't duel them anymore. And it's like, you're in the same conference in wrestling, the Big 12. Just line up.
That just shows you how good Oklahoma State is, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. And Wyoming has yet to beat Oklahoma State. There was a couple times when it's been close.
What was that, 30-3 last year?
Yeah.
In Laramie, or was that in Laramie or Cheyenne? I think it was Laramie.
It was Laramie, yeah. Yep, last year. Yep. And then... and another shout out to former wrestler Archie Colgan.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to be competing in Bellator, and I don't even know the number. It's MMA stuff. I'm not an expert at this by any means, but it's pay-per-view this weekend. So if you get a chance, and Archie is undefeated right now, and he's on the main ticket.
I think 6-0.
Yep,
I want to say.
I think that's right. So if you get a chance, if you're into that kind of stuff, give it a watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, another kudos to Colleen Corbin and her soccer team and what they did this year. Just, penalty shots or
penalty kicks.
Penalty kicks at the end of a game. That's a brutal way to lose the Mountain West Championship, but looks like that program's trending in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yep. Congrats to the Cowgirls, and I know there was a lot of people watching during that championship game night for sure.
Well, Pokes and Howard, 1:15 p.m. Mountain Time.
And then they take Saturday off.
Yeah.
And then they'll play Sunday and Monday, both TBAs, of course. But those are also on ESPN3.
And I'm glad they're taking Saturday off, because there's kind of a gigantic game in Laramie, which we will talk about on the kickoff show you're going to have to switch over to that one, folks, where we're going to break down the CSU win, of course. Wyoming winning for the 6th time in the last 7 meetings against the Rams. This one was a little close for comfort, but a win's a win. And big one against Boise State Saturday night in Laramie.
And we're going to do some more roaring repeaters, and, maybe it's just Cody, which is fine. I don't need to be on all these. You don't need to hear me.
I can do these from home, especially on these days where it's so miserable and snowy and horrible out.
We are going to have some fun and get some guests in, too, though, on these roaring repeaters. It's
definitely.
And talk other things than just cowboy and cowgirl athletics.
Yeah. We'll just talk about everything.
All right.
That's scary. That's a scary thought. All right, guys, we'll hit you up next week.
Spin your passion into a business with Shopify and break sales records with the world's best converting checkout. Let's hear that one more time. The world's best converting checkout. Shopify's legendary checkout makes it easier for customers to shop on your website, across social media, and everywhere in between. Now that's music to your ears. Any way you spin it, you can be a smash hit with Shopify. Start your $1 a month trial today at shopify.com/records.